Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a brand new Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, Rotom Heat. Rotom Heat was just released at the New York City Go Fest, which I was fortunate enough to be able to attend. Now Rotom Heat is going to be an electric and fire type Pokemon with the moveset of Thundershock, Thunderbolt, and Overheat. It's pretty attack weighted, and it has nuke moves, which means if it can land a move, it's going to do a ton of damage, but a lack of a bait move is a bit of a drawback. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at some practice battles in the Great League Remix Cup featuring Rotom Heat. Hopping into the first match, leading Greedent into Frostlass, one Mud Shot, the safe switch to the Shadow Typhlosion, and the opponent is going to respond with Gligar. Gligar would be a pretty big problem for Rotom Heat, so I'm very happy to bait this out. I'm going to farm up and fire off the Blast Burn. Blast Burn will easily knock out. Shadow Typhlosion is incredibly effective at getting shields down. The Incinerate does register, so I decide to go for an incredibly aggressive play. Fully sacrificing the Typhlosion and now going for the single resisted Thundershock farm down. Gligar does have enough for the dig. I'm going to respect it with the shield. I hope I don't get baited, and I don't. I think I will be able to get the farm down here. Rotom Heat does get the farm down, exiting with a massive amount of energy. What are they going to be sending in here? They send in Frostlass. Oh boy, I'm full sending the Overheat here. Overheat to the Frostlass, gets shielded. Rotom makes it to Overheat number 2. This is 2 stages debuffed. Overheat still one-hit KOs. Oh my goodness. In the back is Shadow Venusaur, and I'm now firing off a 4 stages debuffed Overheat. Overheat still nearly picks up the one-hit KO. This thing's attack stat is wild. Frenzy Plant is going to be able to KO, but I can send in Greedent, Mud Shot down the Venusaur, and take the win. We've got a difficult lead in the next match, Greedent versus Dragonite. When trying to team build around Rotom, it definitely felt like Typhlosion was a good safe switch option, just because Typhlosion is very good at forcing shields from opponents, and I really need to get shields down. However, picking a Pokemon to put on the lead does prove to be a little bit more difficult. I decided on Greedent, as Greedent has a lot of neutral play into the water types, but that does mean that this team does have quite a few different weaknesses. Opponent is able to make a nice catch of the Body Slam onto Empoleon, but now I can send in Typhlosion. I'm hoping the Incinerate will KO here, but it does not, and this does force me to throw my energy. So I will fire off the Thunder Punch, and then we'll be able to pick up the knockout. If they send in that Dragonite is not going to be a big fan of the Thunder Punch, so I'm just going to fire this move off right away. Force them to make a decision. The Thunder Punch is going to be shielded. Typhlosion trying to make it to another Thunder Punch, but just cannot get there. I'm going to try for a Peekaboo catch, where I send in the Rotom and then switch. I throw a Thundershock, the switch to the Greedent, and there's the catch. Let's go. Now it's going to be even shields in the back. The final Pokemon is a Ferrothorn. Oh no, trainer. And this is just a win. Ferrothorn's energy is walled here. I go for the Overheat. Goodbye, Ferrothorn. In comes the Dragonite. That gets Thundershock down, and I'm able to take the win. Terrible lead in the next match, Greedent versus Mandibuzz, the safe switch to the Shadow Typhlosion, and they are not switching out. This is very good for me. I would love to be able to just play this out with the Typhlosion. Opponent is going to massively farm up. I know that I can survive a Dark Pulse, but it will do a ton of damage. They go for the Aerial Ace, and I'm just going to click the Thunder Punch immediately. It does give a free Snarl, but this way I can actually force the first shield of the match from the opponent. This Incinerate damage won't register unless I shield, because their move is only 3 turns, whereas mine is 5. I'm going to send in Rotom, but the issue here is they're still, honestly, a bit too healthy. They're going to be able to output some pretty significant damage onto the Rotom. They build up to the Dark Pulse, so I am going to commit the shield. And I just really need Rotom to be able to cook in the back, as I have a ton of energy. What do they have as their final Pokemon? It's a Magnezone! I should have thrown one Thundershock in the move there for good timing. The Overheat does get the shield. Opponent switches and is Reggie in the back. I'm just going to bank 100 energy, switch out to reset the attack drop, and send in Greedent. With Greedent, I can just fully sacrifice it. One Focus Blast doesn't KO because I was at full health. And now I can just spam out these Body Slams to potentially put it into Overheat range. And Shadow Magnezone is glassy enough that even a -2 Overheat will be able to knock it out. So I am going to fire off Body Slam after Body Slam. Opponent looks like they're trying to commit to the lock-on farm down because they want to try and leave with a move. Leaving with a move would be very big for my opponent, but here's where the bulk of Greedent is very, very nice. I'm going to be able to fire off the Body Slam. Switch clock should be up, so I can send in the Rotom, go for the Thunderbolt, so this way I don't debuff my attack, and all I have to do is be able to survive a Volt Switch, and this thing is super glassy, so that's no guarantee, but we barely survived the Volt Switch. Overheat easily KOs that Magnezone, and I'm able to take the win. Decent lead in the next match, Greedent versus Goodra. And this is another matchup where you're very happy to see this on the lead, because it would absolutely crush the back line. With having double fire in the back, I don't find it to be a particularly easy strategy to team build around because there's just a truly tremendous amount of weaknesses you have to cover for. So I'm going to fire off Body Slam number 2. This does not KO, but it does a decent amount of damage. Opponent is going to let that through. They go for the Aqua Tail, and I know that my Greedent is bulky enough to survive this. I'm going to send in the Typhlosion, look to Incinerate down. Opponent is going to switch out, and they send in their own Greedent. Here, I go for the bait. Realistically, baiting here is a pretty poor decision. They end up committing the shield, but the reason why it's a poor decision is because it doesn't actually mean that I get to my next move any faster. I can get to a Thunder Punch here, but it's not going to allow me to make it to a Blast Burn any faster. So I am going to fire off the Thunder Punch. They're just going to let that through, and they're going to get a farm down. I do have the Body Slam, but I end up losing Charge Attack priority, which is very unfortunate. If I won Charge Attack priority, I'd be in a pretty good spot, but now I have to send in Heat Rotom. I'm taking double super effective damage from Mud Shots. This is a very poor spot to be in. I'm just going to try and go for an incredibly aggressive farm down, and I just have to hope that Heat Rotom can do well. The thing is, Goodra is still alive, and Thundershock is going to do absolutely nothing to that Pokemon. Opponent is thinking about it. What do they have in the back here? They send in Registeel, and this comes down to a 50-50. Bait or nuke. I decided to nuke for the overheat, and they shield it. And that's unfortunately game over. If I had Thunderbolted there, I could have won because Overheat would have KO'd due to not being debuffed, and then I could have made a move versus the Goodra, but I thought they would call the bait. So unfortunately, this game will end in a loss. Decent lead in the next match, Greedent versus Victory Bell. I have two better responses in the back, so I send in Typhlosion, and out comes Regirock. Oh my goodness. Regirock, not only is it going to be able to resist my fire type attacks, but it also has lightning fast pacing, which is going to make this a difficult fight. I'm going to fire off the Thunder Punch, they're going to let that through, and they're going to be able to make another Stone Edge. I decide to double shield here, because my thinking is I can Incinerate into a range where Thunder Punch will be able to actually knock out. I'm going down 2 shields in the hope that I can force those shields back from my opponent, who, if they're running Victory Bell, will probably want to keep Switch. And that's exactly what they're going to do here. My opponent is actually going to end up double shielding, which is terrific for me. I'm going to send in the Greedent, tank the move from Regirock, and then, hopefully, snipe them down with some Thunder Shocks, because I do want to be able to outpace the Victory Bell. I think a 3 Thundershock head start should allow me to outpace here. Well, at least to guarantee it, so I send in the Rotom, I get the 3 Thundershocks, and now I can for sure outpace. They send in the Victory Bell. It's overheat time, and this is just going to be a cooked Victory Bell here. Overheat, 1-hit KO in the back is a Registeel. And we are in a fantastic spot to be. Oh my goodness. Overheat, massive damage even when it's 2 stages debuffed. They're going to be able to pick up the knockout with the Focus Blast. And I stored energy on the Greedent. Here's where Crunch would be valuable. But even without Crunch, a couple Mud Shots plus Body Slam should be enough to do it. So I'm going to farm up and go for the Body Slam right before they are able to make it to the Focus Blast. Body Slam is able to KO the Reggie. Opponent running a double Reggie strat, and thankfully we're able to take the win. Moving to the next match, leading Greedent into Whimsicott. The save switch into, oh my goodness, I'm so happy to bait this out. The save switch into the Typhlosion baits out Clodsire. Clodsire would be an absolute nightmare for the Heat Rotom to deal with. Here's the thing though, Typhlosion up even a little bit of energy is a horrific matchup for the Clodsire because I have way better pacing, I have really consistent fast move pressure, and Blast Burn will be able to knock out here. They are going to let that through, so I do win switch advantage, which is incredibly nice, as now Whimsicott is going to be stuck against the Rotom. In the back is Empoleon. Oh my goodness, Typhlosion just taking over this game. Thunder Punch gets the shield. I can make it to another Thunder Punch as well. This forces Empoleon's hand, Empoleon overfarms as much as it can, and now I can just send in Rotom. They don't have a shield left. I have to shield the Hydro Cannon, as Hydro Cannon would probably just cleanly one-shot me. Like, Heat Rotom is not about bulk, and then I just have to watch for the catch. So I farm up, there's the switch into the Whimsicott, and Whimsicott is going to fire off energy. Let's see this damage here. They go for the Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb, I actually tank it kind of okay. You know what? That ends up working out nicely. We get to fire off the Overheat, picking up the KO. In comes Empoleon, and now we get to go for the Thunderbolt. I think it's the first time I got to click Thunderbolt here. So Thunderbolt is going to be able to knock out the Empoleon, and I'm able to take the win. Great lead in the next match, leading Greedent into the Quagsire, but the Tentacruel save switch is going to prove to be a problematic one. I chip with the Body Slam because I don't have a great response, and I'm going to send out the Shadow Typhlosion. If they have Acid Spray, I'm in trouble, but they don't. They have Scald. The Scald does debuff me, which is unfortunate. I'm going to overfarm and fire off the Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch, debuffed, will still be able to pick up the KO. In comes the Quagsire. Quagsire now going to be hit with the Blast Burn. Getting the 30% debuff is a little bit of bad luck there, as now 2 Blast Burns will not be able to KO. Opponent is going to make a beautiful catch, timing it perfectly to catch the Blast Burn onto Toxapex. My clock isn't up, and I get farmed down as well, and now I'm in trouble. Because this is Heat Rotom. Heat Rotom with the Fire subtyping, Brian is going to absolutely shred me. So I'm forced to commit a shield. They have an energy lead, they have a shield advantage, and this is honestly just looking like a loss at this point. This is really, really not good. I go for the Thunderbolt, it gets shielded, I don't get the catch correct. So this Brian is just going to be able to knock me out. And now it's Greedent versus the world, and they're not in a range where a Body Slam or a Trailblaze would KO. I'm forced to go for the Slam and just hope that it can somehow KO, but it can't. Toxapex is just too bulky. Unfortunately, opponent had a triple water team, and I had double fire, so I was in a bit of a tough spot, but my opponent played it very, very well, and in doing so, really just didn't give me a win con due to how well they played it. Decent lead in the next match, Greedent versus Galvantula. I'm going to save switch into Typhlosion. Opponent is going to respond with Jellicent. Jellicent, honestly, up energy, Typhlosion can do great here. Typhlosion is going to be able to apply massive pressure with the Thunder Punch, and that landing means that I can potentially just incinerate this down. However, I do want to throw a Thunder Punch before I do so, because otherwise I'd have to go down 2 shields. And I'm perfectly fine going down 2 shields if I can at least get 1 shield from my opponent. And I'm more than happy just to win switch here, as winning switch does mean that I do get to potentially overheat the Galvantula later. Galvantula is one off a move, so I can't throw an Incinerate or I will get outpaced. So I just go straight for the Blast Burn. Opponent lets it through, and in the back is Empoleon. And this game is just over. I tried to bank the Thunder Punch in switch. Unfortunately, these games were played on hotel Wi-Fi while I was at GoFest New York City, so sometimes my connection wasn't always the greatest. I do tank the Hydro, however, and I'm going to fire off the Trailblaze. The Trailblaze does get shielded. Opponent is now going to have to respect the Body Slam, which they are going to do. And you know what? I have Heat Rotom. I may as well show them that I have it. So I'm going to send in the Heat Rotom. Heat Rotom's going to get absolutely destroyed by Hydro Cannon. Let's see this. This honestly might just fully one-hit KO. Hydro Cannon. Oh, I live it on 1 HP. Shout out to the good IVs. Good news is the game was a win anyway because I had the Thunder Punch banked, but I did at least want to show them that I did in fact have Rotom Heat in the back. But man, Typhlosion popped off there. We got a tough lead in the next match as I am triple weak to Gligar. I send in Typhlosion. Every Gligar baits here, so I decide, you know what, I'm going to call it. They actually full send the dig, and I've instantly lost the game. That's the unfortunate thing is, like, when you're running some, let's say, less than meta Pokemon, you're going to have to build a team that has weaknesses, and if your opponent ends up playing it well, or in this case, I just make a wrong shield call, then it kind of puts you in an extremely difficult position. Like now, there is basically nothing in the back that I could see that I could win against, because this still isn't even a range where a Body Slam will KO, because it's the normal Gligar. The Body Slam, not going to cut it. I'm forced to Body Slam again. And I don't think there's a backline possible that Rotom Heat could 1v2. And there's a Shadow Dragonair in the back. Yeah, this game, the moment that I no-shielded that dig was just completely doomed. Although with a Dragonair in the back, I was in for a pretty tough game regardless. We move to the final match, looking for a bit of redemption after the catastrophe that was last game. and I do see a familiar lead, Greedent versus Goodra. I'm farming up to the back-to-back body slams. I fire off the body slam will be no shielded, and opponent actually has yet to throw their energy. So this is very okay. I'm going to be able to fire off another body slam. Opponent lets that through as well. They massively overfarm. They can go for 2 Aqua Tails here, but 2 Aqua Tails do not KO. So they're actually not going to throw it yet. They're waiting until they can Dragon Breath me into range where the Aqua Tail will actually KO. But this does allow me to force a shield, which is quite nice. Opponent, very nice overfarm. Now my question is, can one Incinerate from Typhlosion KO here? I send in the Typhlosion. They try and get the move, but they don't get it. That's very nice. Opponent sends out a Chansey. Oh no, trainer. Absolutely not. I refuse to get Chansey'd. Shadow Blast Burn does a ton to Chansey though. Chansey is known for tanking neutral hits like it's nothing, but that Shadow Blast Burn actually did a lot of damage. Let's go. Typhlosion putting in the work here. My goodness. I fire off the Blast Burn. Blast Burn to the Chansey is going to connect, and it's a simultaneous switch. Rotom Heat versus Gligar. It's the non-Shadow Gligar. I'm just full sending the Overheat here. Overheat nearly picks up a one-hit KO. Oh my goodness. I don't expect them to bait, so I do decide to actually go for the shield. The reason being is that I can overfarm by 1, win charge attack priority over the Gligar. Now they're forced to burn their final shield, and I can just win the game by getting an Incinerate down with Typhlosion because they have no residual energy. So they pick up the KO with the Dig, I farm down with Typhlosion, and I have a Blast Burn ready and waiting for that Chansey. Get that egg off my screen, please, as Jimmy Finn would say, and we're able to take the win. All in all, I had a ton of fun with Rotom Heat. Surprisingly went 7-3 across the 10 battles that I played it in. I definitely don't think this is a Pokemon that is going to have meta impact. Its typing isn't the greatest for open leagues, and even in something like Remix, Fire and Electric, there's going to be a lot of typings that are going to give you a lot of problems. However, if you have the ability to get one, I do think it's worth holding on to, as potentially in the future, if it got a bait move like a much cheaper electric move to pair with a Thundershock Overheat combination, it could be interesting in future limited metas. So I think it's definitely worth grabbing one if you do have the opportunity and holding on to it, even if you don't necessarily build it, because I do think that with a move update, future limited metas, this thing could put in a substantial amount of work. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.